Hello and welcome to yet another installment of the geometry videos, and this is a video over section 4, and this is about writing linear equations. And so our objectives today, we want the equation of a line parallel to a given line that goes through a particular point. We want to write the equation of a line perpendicular to a given line or segment that goes through a particular point. So, when we talk about a linear equation, these are equations that represent a line, okay? So let's write that these are equations, okay, that represent lines, okay? Represent lines. Okay, and so what we want to do, we have a couple different forms of a line. Okay, we have what's called point-slope form, and we have something that's called slope-intercept form. Now, in the point-slope form, that kind of just goes by the name. You're given a point and a slope, okay? So you have a point on the graph, so you have a point on the graph, okay? And that point we're going to call x sub 1, y sub 1, okay? And then the slope, which we talked about the last unit, okay, and that's going to be just m, okay? And then here in slope-intercept form, what this means is that, you have a slope m, okay, slope m, and that's going to be this number right here. And then you have a y-intercept, okay, and remember that's the point where the line crosses the y-axis, okay? And that y-intercept is this value b, okay? So, and these are things that's kind of a review. You've learned this before, but we're just going to kind of talk about it again, okay? So, again, what you see here, all right, and given this picture, maybe this makes a little bit of sense, this value right here is your y-intercept, okay? Y-intercept. Okay, this point right here would be just a point on the graph. Say point on the graph, okay? So, let's go ahead and let's take a look at what we've got here. And on this one, it says, given this graph, okay, we want to determine the equation for the given line in slope-intercept form. So what I want to do is I want to come over here, and it's in slope-intercept form. So I need, I know that if I have an equation in slope-intercept form, then that's going to be of the form y is equal to mx plus b, okay, where m is your slope, okay, and b is your y-intercept. All right, so what I want to do, let's first calculate and figure out what m is. Okay, m is our slope. All right, and what I want to do is just go from one point to the next, draw a right triangle if we're given a graph like this, and I know that we're going to have a negative slope because I'm going to go down 3. Okay, so I'm going to go down 3, and then over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units. Okay. And so my change in y is negative 3, my change in x is 5, so my slope is negative 3/5. Okay? And then the other thing I need to identify is my b, my y-intercept. Okay? And that's the point at which we cross our y-axis. So what you do is you come over here and you just look anywhere along the y-axis and figure out, well, where is this point? Okay? And the point at which we cross the y-axis is the point 0, negative 1. Okay? So my value for b is actually just going to be negative 1. Okay, so if we put it all together into slope-intercept form, that means that I'm going to get y is equal to negative 3/5 x, okay, minus 1. All right, and that's the equation that I'm looking for, and that's this one right here. Okay, so that's all I got. Now it says determine the equation of a line that is parallel to the given line and passes through the given point. So when we talk about parallel lines, okay, remember parallel lines have the same slope. Okay? So I want to first, identify what my slope is here. So, I'm going to draw a right triangle going from this point to the next point. All right, count the units that I go up, and I go up 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so 4, and then I run over 1, 2, 3. So this is going to give me a slope of 4/3, okay? So my slope of my line is equal to 4/3, okay? And then I need to figure out my parallel slope, which is going to be the same thing, and it's just going to be 4/3. Okay, so that's what I want. Okay, that's what we need. But then it has to go through this other given point. Now this point here, I'm going to call this x sub 1, comma, y sub 1. All right? And so what I can do here, I know this is going to be the point 4, 4. Okay? And so what I'm going to do this in two different ways. Okay? I'm going to do this because it didn't tell us what form the equation has to be in. I'm going to use point slope form first. And before I do that, let me do this. Let me say that, the x, we had the point, and let me write this, the point on the graph, okay, is the point 4, comma 4. All right, so here's what I know. I'm going to use point slope form. So this is point slope form. And what's going to happen here is I've got, that's y minus y sub 1, and that's equal to m times x minus x sub 1. All right. Now, I know that my slope, m, is equal to 4/3. Okay. I also know that my x sub 1 value is 4, okay, and that my y sub 1 value is also 4. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all these values and just plug them in, okay? And so I'm going to get y minus y sub 1. Now, y sub 1 is my point on the graph, the y value on my graph, and that's going to be a value of 4. So I'm going to do y minus 4, and this is equal to 4/3, okay, my slope m, which is 4/3, and then multiply that by x minus x sub 1, and that x sub 1 value is 4, so it's going to be x minus 4. All right, so now here's what's going to happen, all right? I want to take this, and I want to put, this is in point slope form, okay? This is doable, all right? This is an answer, okay? But what I want to do is I want to take this and put this into slope intercept form. All right, so the first thing I would do would be distribute the 4/3 into here, okay? So I'm going to rewrite this as y minus 4 is equal to 4/3 times x minus 4/3 times 4/1, okay? And so what we end up getting here is I get the equation y minus 4 is equal to 4/3 x minus 16/3. Okay, and then I'd want to add 4 to both sides, And so then I get that y is equal to 4/3 x minus 16/3 plus 4/1. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a common denominator and add these two fractions. So I'm going to multiply the top and the bottom by 3, okay, because my denominator over here is a 3. So then I get y is equal to 4/3 x minus 16/3 plus 12/3, okay? 16 plus 12 is going to give me 28. So I've got y is equal to 4/3 x minus, it's negative 16 plus 12, so it's going to be minus, negative 16 plus 12 is, what is it, minus 4? So minus 4/3? Yeah, so just minus 4/3. All right, and that's my equation in slope-intercept form. Okay, so this is point slope form, this is slope-intercept form. Now this will always work. Now this is the method that I always used growing up and would always multiply this out, and it can tend to be a lot of work. So I am going to show you guys another way of doing this, but this is in slope-intercept. Slope-intercept. All right, now what I know, I'm going to do the same problem. I'm going to do it over here on this side. So this is method 2. This is probably the easier method. but I wanted to show you both methods. Some people like one, some people like the other, so I got to show you both. All right, I'm going to use just y equals mx plus b, okay? Now, when I do this, I know that I have my point on the graph, my point, and I have my slope, okay? Now, my point on the graph is the point 4, 4, okay? Now, the slope that I have is the slope 4/3, okay? So what I gather from this, okay, is that I have an x value that is 4, and I have a y value that is 4. Okay, when I have a point on the graph, I know that x is 4 and y is 4. And my slope m is equal to 4/3. Now, what you have to realize here is that I have a y, an m, and an x, but I don't have a b. But because I have these three values, I can plug these three values into this equation and solve for b. So let's do that, all right? So if I do, say, y, instead of writing y, I'm going to write 4. So I've got 4 is equal to 4/3 times x, which is 4, okay? So times 4 over 1. What I'm going to get, and then plus b. Okay, I don't know what b is. Okay, this value here is y equals my slope m x plus b. All right, same thing up here. So now I just need to solve this equation for b. So now I get 4 is equal to 16/3 plus b. All right, and let's go ahead and subtract 16/3 from both sides, minus 16/3. So I know that b is equal to negative 16/3 plus 4 over 1. Now let's get a common denominator of 3. So I'm going to multiply the top and bottom by 3. And this is going to give me negative 16/3 plus 12/3, which gives me negative 4/3. Okay? And this is my value for b. All right? So I have my slope, I have my y-intercept, and I just need to write the equation. Y is equal to 4/3 x minus 4/3. And that's it. And that's the same thing that we got on the last one. Okay, now I think it's a little bit less work than this one, okay, but you'll end up getting the same thing, okay? The point in the end is to get the same thing, okay? All right, so now it says use the slope of the line to construct a line parallel through point P, okay? All right, so what we want to do, what is the equation line that is parallel to the given line that passes through the given point, okay? Now, what I know is that my point P here, and let's just go and identify this point P as negative 3, negative 3, okay? That's negative 3, negative 3. And let's identify our slope, and I'm going to go from one point to the next, and this is down 3 and then to the right 3. So my slope M is equal to negative 3 divided by 3, which is equal to negative 1, okay? So if my slope is equal to negative 1, okay, and I have a point on the graph that's negative 3, negative 3, that's all I need, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and my parallel slope, well, my slope is this. Let's right here, let me cross this out. My slope is equal to negative 1. Okay, parallel slopes, parallel lines have the same slope, so my parallel slope is equal to negative 1, okay? Now the point on my graph, okay, I have an x value of negative 3, and I have a y value of negative 3. Now I'm going to use method 2, okay? I'm just going to use the slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to substitute my value in for y into here, so I get negative 3, okay, is equal to my slope m, which is negative 1, and I'm going to multiply that by my x value, which is negative 3, so negative 3, and then plus b, okay? So the only value that I don't have is b. So now I'm going to do this. I got negative 3 is equal to positive 3 plus b. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides, subtract 3, and that goes away, that becomes 0, we get negative 6 is equal to b. So now that I have a slope, or a y-intercept and a slope, I can just write my equation in the form of y equals mx plus b. And so I've got y is equal to negative 1x minus 6. Okay, and you could really write that as y equals negative x minus 6. Okay, that's fine too. But in any case, all right, and that's the idea, is that, and here's that point, negative 6. If I had a line, a slope of negative 1, it goes through that point P. Okay, and these two lines are going to be parallel, all right? So, I mean, you could even, if you wanted to just do it graphically, the slope is negative 1, and you go down 3 over 3, and you hit at an actual value on the y-axis, then that's easy. Up here, it's a little bit trickier, okay? Up here, you didn't have that, all right? You had a fraction. It's a little bit harder to see, so it kind of just depends on the problem. All right. Okay, let's take a look at the next page, and this says a given line has the equation 3x minus 4y is equal to 16. It says, what is the equation of a line that is parallel to the given line and passes through the point 4, negative 2? So, let's take a look. What I want to figure out is what's the slope of this line, okay? And so let me rewrite that equation here, 3x minus 4y is equal to 16. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to solve this equation for y, okay? And so when I do that, I want to move everything else over except for the y. So I'm going to subtract both sides by 3x, okay? Now when I do that, okay, I'm going to get negative 4y is equal to negative 3x plus 16. Okay, and then I'm going to divide everything by negative 4. Divide by negative 4. Divide by negative 4. So I end up getting that y is equal to, now if I take a negative divided by a negative, I get a positive, so this is going to be 3/4 x, and then 16 divided by negative 4 is going to be minus 4. Okay, so my slope that I'm looking for is the number that's in front of my x. Okay, and so I get that my slope, m, is equal to 3/4. Now, if I'm looking for a parallel slope, I know that those slopes are the same, and that's going to be a slope of 3/4. Okay, so that's what I'm looking for first. And then we have the point 4, negative 2. So I have an x value, hold on. I have a parallel slope, I have an x value of 4, okay, and then I have a y value of negative 2, okay? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all these points and I'm going to put them into y equals mx plus b, okay? And when I do that, I'm just going to substitute those values in. So I've got negative, instead of writing y, I'm going to write what y is equal to. Y is equal to negative 2. So I've got negative 2 is equal to my slope, which is 3/4, okay? So 3/4 times my x value, which is 4, okay, and this is 4 over 1, and then plus b. Now here, okay, the 4's here divide out to 1. So these will just divide out to 1 over 1. So in reality, what you get is you get negative 2 is equal to 3 over 1, which is just 3, and then plus b. And then I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides, and so I get that b is equal to negative 5, okay? So I have the slope, and now I have a new y-intercept, and so my new equation is just going to be y is equal to 3/4 x minus 5, and that's it, okay? So, and then it says this, okay, it says, what is the equation of a line that is parallel to this line and passes through the point 5, negative 1? Okay, so this might take a bit, and this is going to be a little bit of algebra. I'm going to do the first method because it wants us to be able to identify an equation in point-slope form, as well as an equation like this, which is what we call in standard form, to get all the x's and y's, all the variables on one side of the equal sign. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to copy down this equation, 2x plus 5y equals 10. Okay, so this is going to be 2x plus 5y is equal to 10. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to solve this equation for y. So I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides, all right? And then I'm going to get 5y is equal to negative 2x plus 10. Now, I didn't mention this in the other problem, but when I subtract 2x over here, I can't combine these, okay? I don't have a way to combine an x and a number, okay? These aren't like terms, so I can't combine them as one. I just leave them as separate terms, okay? Then the next thing I do is I'm going to divide everything by 5, okay? And then I get this. I get y is equal to negative 2/5 x, and then plus 2, okay? And what I'm looking for is a slope. I need to identify my slope out from this point. And so I know that my slope is equal to negative 2/5, and that my parallel slope is also going to be equal to negative 2/5, okay? So I've got that. Okay, and I have the point negative 5, 1. So my point on the graph is going to be the point negative 5, comma 1. So let me double check that that's right. Okay, now from here, what I want to do is I'm going to use point slope form. So I've got y minus y sub 1 is equal to m times x minus x sub 1. Okay, now from this point, I know that x sub 1 is equal to negative 5, and that y sub 1 is equal to 1. So I'm just going to plug those in, and I get y minus y sub 1, which is 1. So I'm going to put minus 1, and that's equal to my m, which is negative 2/5, and then that's going to be times x minus x sub 1, which, so minus a negative 5, all right? So really what's going to happen here is this is going to be, what do we got? We got y minus 1 is equal to negative 2/5 times x plus 5. Now, this is in point slope form. Now, I just want to go over here and just see if I have that same answer here, and I sure do. Okay, so this is an answer, all right? Now, the other thing I want to do is I want to take this, and I'm going to solve this equation for y and put this into slope-intercept form. So I'm going to rewrite this equation, all right, all the way up here. So I've got y minus 1 is equal to, what's my slope? Negative 2/5. Negative 2/5 times x plus 5, okay? And so what I want to do is I want to distribute my negative 2/5. So I get y minus 1 is equal to negative 2/5 x minus 2/5 times 5 over 1, okay? Now what's cool here is that these 5s divide out, okay, to 1 and 1. So you're just left with y minus 1 is equal to negative 2/5 x just minus 2, okay? When those 5s divide out, I get a 1 and a 1. 2 times 1 is 2. 1 times 1 is 1. Negative 2 divided by 1 is just negative 2, okay? And then I'm going to add 1 to both sides, okay? And then I'm going to get y is equal to negative 2/5 x. Negative 2 plus 1 is just going to be minus a 1, okay? And this is my answer in slope-intercept form. So I go over here, and I say I got negative 2/5 x, and that's a minus 1. So I have another 1 here, okay? Now what I want to do is I want to put this into standard form, okay? And so if I put this into standard form, okay? So watch what I do for standard form. This is really important that we write this one down. So what I've got y is equal to negative 2/5 x minus 1. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 2/5 x to the other side. Okay, I'm going to take this value right here and I'm going to move it over. And so I'm going to add 2/5 x to this side. These add to 0. Negative 2/5 x plus 2/5 x becomes 0. So therefore, I get this. I get 2/5 x plus y is equal to negative 1. Now, what I want to do is I notice that I don't have that same value over here. But what I want to do is I want to get rid of my fraction here. So I'm going to multiply this entire thing by my fraction, or by my denominator, which is 5. So then I'm going to distribute that 5 into each of those terms. So when I take this and I get 5 over 1 times 2/5 x plus 5 times y is equal to negative 1 times 5. All right. The cool thing is here is that my 5's divide out. And you're just left with 2 over 1, which is just x. So we get this. We just get 2x plus 5y is equal to, and then negative 1 times 5 just gives me negative 5. Okay, and that's it. And I notice that I have that same answer up here. Okay, so those three. And all three of these are different representations of the same line. Okay, if you went into Desmos and graphed this equation, and this equation, you get the same thing. Okay. All right, let's move on. Okay, now what we want is something that is perpendicular. So what is the equation in slope-intercept form of the line that is perpendicular to the given line and passes through the given point? So the first thing I need to do is identify my point over here. And this is going to be the point 8, negative 4. Okay, so I've got the point 8 and then negative 4. And then the next thing I want to do is identify my slope. So I'm going from one point to the next. And what I notice here, okay, is that this slope here is positive. I have a vertical change of 4 and a horizontal change of 1. Okay, kind of hard to see, but that's 1. So my slope, okay, is going to be 4 over 1. Now, let's go back over here, all right. I have my slope m is equal to 4 over 1, okay? But then I have to identify my perpendicular slope. Okay, and remember perpendicular slope, this means that we flip the fraction and change the sign. So flip fraction, change the sign. Okay? And so my perpendicular slope is going to be the slope of negative 1 over 4, all right? And that's it. So that's the slope that we need to use. Now we also have the point, okay, the point, and that was 8, negative 4, okay? So here's what I want to do. I'm going to use my slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, okay? I know that from this point, this tells me that x is equal to 8, and that y is equal to negative 4, all right? So my y value is negative 4, and this is going to be equal to my slope, which is negative 1/4, okay, times, which looks like 8 over 1, okay, times 8 over 1, and then plus b, okay? Now, from here, okay, I got 8 divided by 4, so this becomes 2 over 1, all right? And so then the fraction that I get here is negative 1 times 2 all over 1. So that's just going to give me a value of negative 2 plus b, and then that's going to equal negative 4. So then I want to add 2 to both sides. Add 2, add 2. So then I get negative 2 is equal to b, all right? And so that's my value for b. Here's my slope, so I just need to put it into slope-intercept form, and we write that y is equal to negative 1/4 x minus 2. And that's my answer, and that's what we're looking for, okay? Okay, now over here, all right, it says, what is the equation in slope-intercept form, okay, of the line that is perpendicular to the given line and passes through the point 2, negative 1. So here's what I've got. I know that my x value is 2. Okay, let me use a different color. Let me use blue. My x value is negative 2. Okay, my y value, not negative 2, just 2. All right, and my y value is negative 1. Now I need to come over here and figure out what my slope is. And so my slope going from one point to the next, I go down 1 and then over 3. So negative 1 over 3. So I come over here, all right, I know that my slope of my line is negative 1/3, but I need to find my perpendicular slope, okay? And my perpendicular slope, I'm going to flip the fraction and change the sign, and that's going to give me positive 3 over 1, okay? So my perpendicular slope is just going to be 3, All right, so I got my slope, I got my point, okay, and let's use y equals mx plus b. So y equals mx plus b, and I get that my y value is -1, my slope is a value of 3, my x value is a value of 2, and then we're going to add b to that and solve for b. So now I have this. I have -1 is equal to 6 plus b. So if I subtract 6 from both sides, then I get that -7 is equal to b. All right, and that's pretty simple. All right, so now I just need to write my equation, and that equation is going to be y is equal to 3x minus 7. And that's what we've got, and that's my answer right here. Okay, so that's all we're doing. All right. So pretty easy stuff you've probably done before, but we just want to review it and make sure you know how to do it. Okay, on the last page, we're talking about finding the equation of a perpendicular bisector. Remember, a perpendicular bisector is a line that cuts a segment in half and forms a 90-degree angle. Okay, so what I want to do here is I want to find a perpendicular bisector, and I think it's going to be something that's going to go like this. Okay, it's going to be a line that goes in this direction. Okay, it's going to cut it in half. And then it's going to form a 90-degree angle. So first thing it wants us to do is we want to determine the slope of the given segment. So what I want to do is this, going from one point to the next. So I'm going to take this point here and this point here. I'm going to draw a right triangle. Okay, and so what I notice is that the slope of this line, or this length, has a length of -4. Okay. And this length here, from -4 to +4, is a length of 8. Okay, so my slope, okay, in part 1, okay, my slope is equal to -4 divided by 8, which is really just a slope of -1/2. Okay, so that's my slope. Now the next thing it wants us to do is to calculate the midpoint of the given segment. So the midpoint, okay, is the point in the middle, okay, hence the name midpoint. Okay, I'm going to write it's the point in the middle. Now, the next thing I want you to do is copy down the midpoint formula. Okay, so the midpoint formula, okay, is this. It's going to be x sub 1 plus x sub 2 over 2, comma, y sub 1 plus y sub 2 over 2, okay? So let's do this, okay? And I'm going to call this point here, say my x sub 1 and y sub 1. It really doesn't matter which one you choose, but I'm going to call this point x sub 1, comma, y sub 1, all right? And that's going to be the point -4, +2. So -4, +2, okay? And then over here, I'm going to call this my second point. I'm going to call this x sub 2, comma, y sub 2, and this is going to be the point 4, comma, -2. So if I plug this into my formula, okay, x sub 1 plus x sub 2, and that's going to give me the value of -4 plus 4, okay? And then this is over 2, comma, y sub 1, which is 2 plus -2. Okay, so I'm going to do 2 plus -2, and this is all over 2. All right, now when I do this, okay, I'm just going to evaluate this. So I've got -4 plus 4, which is 0. So this gives me 0 over 2, comma, and this is 2 plus -2, and that gives me a value of 0 over 2. And now what I have here is I have 0 over 2, comma, 0 over 2, and so I have the point 0, 0. This is my midpoint. Okay, notice how when I evaluate this, okay, notice how I don't have any equal signs and I'm just getting down to a single point. Okay, when I do this part here, this will give me the x value of my midpoint. Same thing here, all right? So this point right here, the point 0, 0, is my midpoint. Okay? Now, all right, so in part 2, okay, my slope, or my midpoint is the point 0, 0. Okay, now in step 3 it says determine the slope of the line perpendicular to the given segment. Okay, and so what I have here, okay, is that I know my slope is equal to -1/2, but I want to know what my perpendicular slope is. And that's going to mean that I flip my fraction and change the sign. So I end up getting this. I end up getting that this is going to be 2/1, which is equal to just 2, okay? So I have my slope, and I have my I have my point, and now I'm going to put this into slope-intercept form, okay? So using y equals mx plus b, all right, and you know, you can just plug in 0 for y is equal to 2 times 0 for x plus b, and you end up getting that b is equal to 0. Okay, now I did that algebraically. You can also just tell on the graph that this is the point that crosses the y-axis, and you can just say that that's 0. But I know my slope is 2, my y-intercept is 0, so if I use y equals mx plus b, y equals mx plus b, I get that y is equal to 2x plus 0, so y is equal to 2x, okay? And that's it, all right? So now, over here, wants us to do the same thing, okay? And so I'm going to find the equation of the perpendicular bisector for the given segment following those same steps. So step 1, let's find the slope, okay? And I want to go from this point up to the next. I'm going to identify this point as the point -2, -2, and this is the point 2, 4, okay? And so I'm going to calculate my slope at the same time. And this is going to give me, okay, what do I got? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we go up 6. And then we go over 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is 4. So my slope, m, is going to be the slope 6/4, which is really going to simplify down to 3/2. Okay, so in step 1, my slope was equal to 3/2. All right. Now in step 2, okay, let's calculate our midpoint. Okay, and that's going to be x sub 1 plus x sub 2 over 2, comma y sub 1 plus y sub 2 over 2. All right, now over here, let's go ahead and I'm going to write this as x sub 1, y sub 1. This point over here is going to be x sub 2, y sub 2. And, okay, here's what I've got. I've got -2 plus 2, okay? So let me do this. I'm going to do -2 plus 2 over 2, comma, y value is -2 plus 4. So I've got -2 plus 4 over 2. And so if I evaluate this, -2 plus 2 is just going to give you 0 over 2, comma, -2 plus 4 is going to give me 2 over 2. All right, and so when I simplify this, I'm just going to get the value of 0, comma 1, okay? And that point is right here, and that's going to be my midpoint, okay? So what I can do, all right, this is the point on my graph, okay? Now all I need is my perpendicular slope. So I know my slope was 3/2, but my perpendicular slope is I'm going to flip my fraction and make it negative, all right? And that's what I've got here. And that's what I've got here. I've got a point and I've got a slope. So now if I use the equation y equals mx plus b, all right, then I'm going to get that y, which is 1, is equal to -2/3 times x, which is 0, and then plus b. Now, anything times 0 is just going to be 0, so this just goes away to 0, and we get that b is equal to 1, okay? So now that I have a y-intercept and a graph or a slope, I can write my equation, and we get y is equal to -2/3 x plus 1. All right, and that's it. Now the other thing is that if you know that your midpoint lies on the y-axis, then you can just go ahead and put it there. So I know this was a long video. It's kind of a long section. There's a lot going on. But, I want to make sure, I have every step written down. So it's not a bad idea to rewatch this video, but that's all I got for this. We'll skip the last question on the notes. So you guys did a good job with this section. Go ahead and get started on the assignment, and then do your quiz, and then after that, we got a unit test. So see you later. Bye.